done a lot of work actually for the collecting track, a lot of design work on several books from collectors. He's helped with our giveaway design. He's also written a book called A New Proof, which talks about some of the card art from A New Hope packaging from Kenner. And so I want to introduce Mattias Rendahl, who's going to talk about the art and packaging of Star Wars toys.
So, can you hear me loud and clear? So, welcome. I'm impressed with the number of people here. Aren't you aware they're supposed to release a trailer? So, I will try to make this presentation quick, so we all can see it after this show. So, like I said, my name is Mattias. I'm from Sweden, so hence the funny accent. I'm an art director by profession, and so I'll help with designing stuff for the collecting track over the years. And there's a few of Gus' own books that I helped design, and my own. So this talk today is very special to me because it combines the best of two worlds for me. It's design and Star Wars. It's like almost living the dream. Sorry about that. Nice. This was a typical toy store aisle back in the 70s. It was a lot of color. It still is, of course, but when Star Wars came along, it was actually something special that happened. Like boy toys and action figures turned black. It's very obvious, and like all the boy toy lines today have like this more cool black packaging, but that was quite unique back in the day. And many people were really afraid of releasing toys that had black packaging instead of like light blue and that kind of stuff. So it was a revolution for the packaging design about the toys, which is really cool. And this is the guy responsible for that, Ray Persik. He was the art director and owner of Kato, which was the design firm that Kenner hired to make all of the design. But before I show you like the final product first, but let's take this from the beginning. When the packaging of Star Wars was really a success, and it helped selling toys in so many ways. And it was like no one knew what was going to happen, and Kenner put together like a brief on what was going on. It was 9 figures that was going to be released first, and they needed packaging for that. But before they had a very in-depth brief, they had this piece of paper that Art Hefner at Kenner, one Friday afternoon, he called Ray and said, "Hey, Ray, we've got something going on. There's this dude in LA called George Lucas. He's he's releasing a space movie, and maybe we're doing the toys. And we got that license, and we need to see what you guys can come up with." This was a Friday afternoon, and he handed this piece of paper over and said, like, on Monday, I would like to have some concepts presented to us. And Ray was like, "Oh, this isn't possible." But he was going on a camping trip with his family. But when the big client demands that you should do some work, you just do it. So Ray did some meeting drafts and some notes. And if you look closely at this picture, you can see some designs that's present on the toys that were produced. So already in the meeting that Friday afternoon, some of the concepts that we see and that Hasbro now uses for the vintage collection was made already back in the meeting. So they made up a project sheet for the 9 figures that was going to be released, and they have this order. But like I said, first Ray was going camping. So he brought his sketchbook, notes and piece of paper, and Art told Ray that, like, don't spend much time on this. And definitely don't use color, just black and white. Make it as cheap as possible. We don't know if this is going to be a success or not. And he felt like Kenner, they of course believed in it, but they didn't dare to hope for much of it. So he brought his markers, color markers. He was like wild. He didn't do what the client said, and he started to draw. So he spent the whole weekend up in the mountains drawing different kind of concepts. He got this weird piece of paper to the left, which is a figure reference sheet, and it's like a rough design of how the action figures were supposed to look like. So he used those figures as a base to put on different list cards, which one you can see to the right. And one of the obvious design ways they wanted to go was to, like, since the movie was called Star Wars, a lot of design concepts used a star in the design. It was long in the process before they ditched a star behind the figure. There are some more, and to the far right you can see that we're approaching the final, what we are so used to see today. They have the racetrack, and they have the idea of different colors for different figures. Here it's on the racetrack, and like we all know today, it's behind the figure. So he made like 10 or 15 concepts like this and presented to Kenner on Monday morning. And since they had no time to lose, they had to start to work directly. They were so behind on everything, so they did a lot of different concepts. The next step was to create some conceptual mock-ups, rough ones with pasted on black and white photography, and on each back of them, down in the right-hand corner, you see number 6. So they use these in focus groups and internal groups to get an idea of which design was the best to use. And when they tested all of them, after this was a quick process. But a quick process back in the day was quite difficult. It's not like today when you have Photoshop and you can do something like in 5 minutes. So each element needs to be designed by hand. So here we have the airbrush and drawn elements of the racetrack, the logo. So they had an illustrator that made them. Then they went to the photographer. He took pictures of it, went into the dark room, developed the film, and then they could start pacing and putting things together, like on that layer to the right, which is completely handmade with different items like we see around her. And here we have from the back of the 12 back more design elements that needed to be done. At first, Robert made this illustration on the top, but Lucasfilm didn't like it and demanded that he should redo it like more accurate paintings. And so John Hamm at Cato, he made an illustration on the lower part of that, and that's the one they used on all the 12 acts. You can see on the floor in many celebrated down the show. And here we have the illustrations for the whole back. You see the figures that we previously shown and the artwork that is placed on a cromlin. And there was a lot of notes on these things, a lot of changes that went into it. And then this was only the back. So to create the front, several times when I talk to people, they say, well, yeah, the front, that's all the pictures from the movies, like straight up pictures that they use. But it's actually a lot of work went into each toy front that Kenner made. So they did this old school photoshopping with an airbrush. So here you can see that's a movie still, and then when the airbrush artist they made a print from it, and then they wanted to highlight the figure. They wanted to make it look even cooler. So they did this like small changes that made the figure pop out even more. You can see on the corners around it, it's like airbrushing, and there's pencils and stuff. And most people think it's only stills from the movies, which is not. And then the finalized product. This one is quite cool. On this one, they didn't have much. This was the only image they got from Lucasfilm. Kenner had really trouble getting reference material this early, so they only had a picture to the left. So everything here is created by hand, the mountains, the sky, even added some more rocks to it. And they flipped it, reversed it, and it's shadowing, highlights, everything so the figure would pop out. So even here, when creating the C3PO one, R2 was in the picture, so they had to remove him. So this was like pretty advanced work made by hand, and the end result is, yeah, it looks like it came directly from the movie, but it sure didn't. This is one of my favorite ones, and here you can see how much work that went into it. Han Solo was removed, all the ceiling or parts of the Millennium Falcon is made by hand, and that's nothing we think of today when we see this image on the toys. Even a pretty lame character like T1B that's like all this amazing artwork. And here to the left, you see like it's not finished here, but they didn't care about that because here was like the bubble and figure going, so why put some hours creating that area when it was supposed to be covered up? It's probably one of the worst, like that. I don't know if it's a man bra or if it's like, well, yeah, but well, some of them were good and some weren't just as good. Even here on the speeder bike, so everything here is added by hand, and the treetops and everything here. And it's nothing to think about when you see the toy today. Here they removed the Gamorrean guard's legs, because that's where the figure were going, and they added the ceiling, and so a lot of it went into that. Here's my favorite. I'm a cheap Sherpa collector actually. I'm one of the few that dares to admit that the Ewoks are cool. Yeah. but before, this is the final artwork that he used for the toy, but before that, Kenner had some problem, like most collectors do today, confusing all the Ewok things, they all look the same. So the first one that the agency got and wanted to do some airbrushing on, they accidentally cropped the wrong Ewok. So this was supposed to be the artwork for Chief Sherpa, but they removed Chief Sherpa and made Logray the center character. And this is like a fun way of to investigate toys. I found this slide, and it has number 5 to 4, and it has the same number on the bottom. So it's cool to pair things together when you're a collector. And then I couldn't refuse to make a custom one to, well, how Chief Sherpa was supposed to be if they gotten their names right from the start. And did you know that Chief Sherpa has a lizard, and it's his personal advisor? Yes. So you learn a lot today in this packaging panel. Well, back to the process. So once we're done with the photo art, it was time to put everything together. And like everything else, a lot of work went into that as well. At this time, you put all the elements together and you created a thing that's crumbling. It's a French product standard from back in the day. It's a high glossy fill you create so that you can prove the layout, difficult word today after a good party. So here you see, you need to say that loud, sorry. You can see what went into this. On the crumbling, the Luke Skywalker name is white. And some designer thought it was like, we need more contrast, and so we will make it in black instead. So that the final one was black. There's some copyright info that's not on the first crumbling. That's then added to the process. Most collectors air the word proof card all of the time. To confuse all of you even more, the true proof card is actually the crumbling that we just looked at. But Kenner created a lot of proof cards. And proof cards, that they did them locally in Cincinnati to use for all kinds of stuff, mock-ups, etc. And there are 4,000 to 5,000 proof cards out there because one guy, Steve Denning, he was a collector very early on, and he had friends at Kenner. And at one time when he was like dumpster diving, he was like looking for stuff everywhere around the facilities. One day he got a phone call from a guy at Kenner and said like, hey, we're throwing away some stuff. I think you're interested. So Steve went there, and I think it was like 4 boxes of proof cards and art that they were going to throw out. So he saved them, and that's like the majority of the proof cards that's known to exist is from that day, and that's fine. So without that, I wouldn't sit with this book and doing this panel, that's for sure. So I'm going to just give a small, quick guide, or kind of just give an idea how many different proof cards that is around. It exists for most characters, and here are the Star Wars ones. And when you collect these things, you find different stuff all the time. So to the far left, we have one of the earliest proof cards, which is on really thin cardstock, and then we have thicker cardstock, and did this for like all different cars. As soon as there was a new offer, a new figure, they went and back and did the whole process all over to create proof cards that you could use them. And you even find proof cards that's like have rounded corners down in the bottom. Typical proof card has square corners, that will give it away. So if you're walking around down at the floor, seeing some dealers have some really cool proof cards. So they're not just card backs, and you notice that especially when you look at the price tag, because they can be quite pricey. Yeah. And of course, it exists for all of the Empire Strikes Back cars as well, most of them. You can really be a nerd going into all the details of card collecting and all the different styles. But even like one here, the 3 to the far right is for the display arena proof card. So there's like 4 different proof cards just for that offer. There's one with like square bottom corners, rounded corners, which is called a production light proof card. Then they have big sheets and that people have cut down over the years. So even for one single character, you can find different kind of proof cards for the same card. If you have a focus on a figure, then you try to track all of those down. Here's the last Empire ones that's known to exist. And these are quite rare. Only a handful of each are known to exist for each character. They are the most common proof card is the Revenge one, and there are almost exists like 50 of each of them. At least the one to the left. The one to the right, there are like only 1 or 2 of each known. So here on the back, like all the details that went into this. If you have really good sight from far in the back, there's some cards that have Return of the Jedi, which they obviously changed, and some have a Revenge on the backs. And small variations that you need to track down and see. And even the return proofs have very different ways. There's production lights with round corners, there's cut from sheet, and regular proof cards. And some were used for signatures as well, to quality control them, see the quality of the cardstock, etc. And of course, the porcelain as well has a few examples of that. Some unproduced as well, like 2-1B that wasn't released, and Royston Eagles as well. What's really cool about proof cards is there are some alternate proof that's not. If we look at Weequay here, the released card says Weequay, and the first proof for that character was just gift card. So that becomes a highly a piece that many want to have, and makes it much more interesting than just a piece of cardboard. Here you have for another gift, and if you watch closely, you see that to the far left, the cropping of the image is totally different. Maybe not totally, but it's different at least. So they adjusted it after a test print run, probably because they thought it would be better and cooler if you had more close-up on Lando. And even if everything was ready, like here on Gamora and Guard, they went back, and if you look closely, you see that some characters is still present on the left one, but is removed on the right one. So after you did all of the process, they could go back and keep airbrushing it, everything to perfection. Even small differences like this, like the Fortuna is slightly changed and different cropping on the approved card versus the released version. But how are the proof cards used? Like I said, there are like tons of them, and thousands of them out there. And how did Kenner use them? They used them, for example, for their commercials. Before the production run had begun, they did like a local test print run, and they could use it on their in their commercials. So we're going to watch one. Keep in mind when looking at this commercial from the 80s that this proof card today would probably go for $3,000. Maybe you can imagine.
Darth Vader, Chewbacca, and 18 other action figures, all from Kenner Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection, each sold separately. At participating stores, you can check specially marked packages for details on how to get the secret figure. New Boss, Alien Bounty Hunter, not available in stores yet. Free with 4 proofs of purchase from any of the Empire Strikes Back collection figures.
This is the horror movie of the year for me.
Each sold separately. From Kenner Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection.
So that was one example of how Kenner used the proof card. Here's one other way. They used it for to put the figure together by hand and to be presented at a toy fair in New York, like the toy shows that the toy shops went to buy their stuff. So if you look closely down there, that's the exact same figure as here. Here's a hand-cut bubble and glued onto a proof card that was then used at Toy Fair. And if you know your Boba Fett, it was like, on the final version, it was like text here and all kinds of different stuff. So all of the other here are handmade prototypes as well. Here we see the square corners in the bottom. Which gives them away as prototypes as well. So these are handmade and were sent to the photographer so they could use them in catalogs and for all kinds of work that you need to do before the figure is done. Here's another one. This one was used in this Toy Fair catalog. And all of these, I believe all, can someone correct me, am I right there? All are unproduced on this side. But actually all of them exist and is out in collector hands today. So it's quite cool to go back to Kenner material, see it printed, and then it actually exists still. Quite impressive since it's like hand glued, it's only tape and stuff. So here's a small, short chapter about the Revenge of the Proof Cards. That's like the gateway to pre-production collecting. Just don't go down this route. But since they're the most common ones, like I said, like there's 50 of each character, and they made 48 characters. So it's the easiest way to start with if you want a pre-production sample in your collection. And you can find some for some hundreds of dollars, and some are much more expensive, but at least they are one of the cheaper and easier to find. But even here for Revenge of the Jedi, a lot of work went into it. They didn't, like, we see the Return of the Jedi logotype today and we think it's obvious, but Kenner tried a lot of different logos before they decided what to choose from. So here's all like stars and different colors and everything. And these are all handmade and pasted onto existing proof cards, just to try out how the logotype would work out. And all of these are on Empire Strikes Back cards, because that's what they had. they continued to work on the logo all the time and tried all kinds of different things. Just showing how much work went into one single card, and in the end it ended up being similar to the return one that we all know today. So that's a full set of Revenge of the Jedi proof cards. And the note to the right is the handwritten note by that guy Steve Denny I told you earlier about when he found all of the proof cards. So the Revenge ones, he found 600 of those, which was 50 sets. And that's the majority of the proof card, the Revenge ones out there. Steve Sam Sweet has found a few sets, and you find some bits and bobs everywhere, but majority of them are from this find. They even used the Revenge proof cards for mock-ups and to be presented at Toy Fair. We have two examples. And the one to the right is like looking like a beater card, but that's actually cut and hand pasted on, but bubble and figure has fell off. So even that is interesting for a collector, and it's used to be in my collection, and everyone thought it was like only a used card back, but it's not. So when creating the new characters for return, they did photostat copies of the stills they got from Lucasfilm. So this was before the airbrushing was done, just to create a look and feel of how the characters would look like. Which colors they were going to use, and to identify which one they had used, they put a small sticker on the back saying which original proof card they was going to use. Quite a few of those around as well. And here we have Revenge when the next step in the process. We're starting to get into the final return before they change to return here to remove the offer. And 2 sheets of these were found and saved and then cut out. So these are the rarest of the Revenge of the Jedi proof cards that are out there. So if you find offerless Revenge, buy it and send it to me. By the end of the line, wait, is that He-Man? Wow, wrong presentation, sorry. But by 84, 85, the popularity of Star Wars was not as it used to be, so Kenner tried all kinds of different concepts just to try. As we know, they added a coin to the figure just to create more popularity to it. And He-Man was being popular at the time, so we can only guess that there was a small inspiration from Mattel. And so they started to work more with illustrations and art for the Power to Force line that they never had done before. Here's one really cool piece. This is the original artwork for the hands and lightsaber on the packaging of all of the Force cards that is out there. So that's like the master illustration. And there's one lucky guy in this room that owns that. And it's not me, but it's a killer piece for sure. Here we have like, this is true art. It's like fantastic piece. It's a big painting that they were going to use for the Power to Force packaging. It ended up being on the droids packaging instead. So that's an unproduced proof sheet for it. And more favorite Ewoks for all of you to see. So here we have a proof sheet for an unproduced piece of art. On some of the notes on the back of this proof sheet, it says that Lucasfilm rejected this artwork. We can only guess. You can see the battle wagon is about to fall over. Maybe it's not a good way to sell toys, seeing them being destroyed. And of course you want the good guys to win. So they changed it and did it more, not as violent as the first one. So this is the released artwork that they ended up using on all of the battle wagons. So here's the original art for the security scout. Here's a lot of details went into this. Here's airbrushing, here's brushes, it's pens, many different techniques went into this. Here in the back you see a full run for the security scout, the original art. We have some concept boards, then original photo arts, and then proof sheets over here. And then the best line of them all, only Ewoks, for the very cool character build scouts. So here Kenner was provided with reference images from Nelvana that was drawing the cartoon Ewoks, but the design firm still created their own artworks for everything that was released. And here is for the unreleased Admiral Screed character. That's a pretty cool piece. If you're down walking the floor, there's a booth. I think it's Cass. I don't know what. It's for collectible cases, acrylic. And he owns the original artwork for Boba Fett. So it's on the display there. So check that out. It's a pretty amazing piece. So that was like a quick presentation about what goes into creating just one figure, and that makes you like maybe appreciate some of the toys even more. Today we do this kind of design in an afternoon, and here you have to spend weeks. Ray told me that the first invoice that the design firm sent to Kenner was for $210,000 for the Star Wars design work that they did. So it was a pretty big client for the design firm, and a lot of people was involved. You need to have a whole big staff and not just one guy with Photoshop and design. So if you want to know more about this, there's all kinds of different references you can go. The man that started it all, the first collector of proof cards for real that documented it all, is John Kellerman. His book is unfortunately sold out, but if you find it or have it, it's one of the best resources out there. And then we have Justin Duncan's Guide to Star Wars Prototypes, and then my book about the first moving packaging design and improve. And of course, the best way is the free way. You don't have to buy anything. You have Gus's site, the Star Wars Collectors Archive. There's tons of information, references, proofs, artwork, a lot of entries that's worth. You can spend your whole life going through that amazing site. There's a cool packaging design thread on the forum Rebel Scum. And I have a Facebook group which called Me Proof, where you can ask questions and keep up with what's happening in the proof hobby. And that was it. Thanks. So, anyone have any questions, or I want to look at the trailer? I don't know if it's released yet. I don't think so. Yes.
So, when did they make the change to decide to use movies?
It's amazing. Kenner didn't think it was going to go. There's Well, I live in Kentucky.
One second, sorry.
When did they decide to actually change the car back?
My sister worked there.
Yeah, and the question was when they decide to change the car and use movie stills instead of illustrations. And it's not clear about it. I think it was only like the way he was drawing it and working on it, like a cheap and fast way to create a look and feel of it instead.
That's, I thought, well, man, I told my son, he said, yeah, I should have kept it.
There's a book coming out later on. I don't dare to say
So they used to give them
hopefully later this year. Same as for Christmas.
and then when they closed down, then it's, she lost her job.
I have one book up here, and then I'm heading into the social room. If you want to look at it, I have a booth down there as well, and I'm always open if you have questions or want to talk
Look how much money
anything about Star Wars and stuff. Anyone else? Yep.
Oh, thank you. Oh my God. Oh,
yeah.
I didn't see any of the foreign carded versions. How much more difficult are those to come by?
yeah, that's the girl.
Good question. There are like proof cards from Italy, from France, but there are basically nothing out there. There are a few mechanical ones from France. There are some palletized unused car bags. And this all goes down to a few people, because like the story I told you about Steve Denny, he received these 4 boxes of proof cards. If it wasn't for that, it would be in the dumpster. And then there was one more Kenner guy, when they removed, they were throwing out some warehouse. He saved a lot of proof sheets and grommelings and all the artwork. He just took it in his car in the 90s and drove back home. And after that, he took 5 kids to college, I think, because of that. So he sold that. So yeah. So if it wasn't for those two, there wouldn't be much packaging and pre-production stuff out there. So if I would have been like Steve Denny back in Europe, then maybe I would be the one that has had a European license proof cards. But well, so nothing. But who knows? It might be out there somewhere.
That's fine. You got one said
That's it.
2 boys to college.
Thank you very much.